I'm not using the Rider-Waite-Smith, but I'm using a very Rider-Waite-Smith based deck. This is the Modern Witch Tarot, and you've seen this recently on these videos. But it really does a good job of working for this intention. All right, I have shuffled this. I'm just going to cut it a couple of times so we get some variation here. So we're going to take a look first at mind, body, and spirit health, just kind of what we need to be paying attention to, and where that leads us. And Ace of Swords. Okay, this is our intellect. This is our logic. This is how we're thinking and communicating. Swords have been coming through really strongly. And this is all the opportunity to speak your truth. This lays out the entire potential of the swords, all the way from one to the King of Swords. So just think about that as you're going through your week. And you know, what's really coming through for me is because this is such an internal dialogue week, that standing in our truth, and I'm probably gonna say that again before the end of this reading, but standing in your truth is your superpower. You know, it gives you all that energy of the air. And it is truly, you're going to cut through any of the silliness, and you're going to listen to your own inner voice. You know, there is no room here for outside influence and chatter. It's really time to go inward and sort through your feelings. And, you know, really you get to go first this time. You do get to put yourself first. And I like that for us very much. So when it comes to our body, I would say let's just be really clear about how we are treating ourselves. You know, with swords, you know, things can be really black and white, and life isn't that way. You know, we need to take things step by step and incrementally think about what we're doing, and do things. You know, it's the consistent things every day that lead to big change down the road. Okay, so spiritually, again, standing in your truth, our Hierophant and our Judgment card. This ties beautifully back to that. You know, like I said, there's just no room for chatter and disillusionment. This is really the time to be brutally honest with ourselves, is what I'm going to say. Mind, body, and spirit. Yeah, the mind. You know, this is the mind card. This is the pay attention card. But I like that we're getting the ace, because it's such a gift. It is literally being given to us by a celestial hand, as a reminder of how powerful our mind is. You know, and we can get a little wrapped around confusion and anxiety, but I don't see that this week. You know, I see some real peace and contentment in this processing. And then I see almost a big sigh of relief as we tip those problems and past burdens into that pool that's just going to absorb it while we carry the Ace of Cups forward. All right, that's what I have for mind, body, and spirit. Let's take a look at relationships. Just for kicks and giggles, I'm going to cut it one more time, and we're going to get this card. Knight of Wands. Oh, this is the first really forward-moving card in this spread so far. So the Knight of Wands is fire. You know, this is our fire. This is what lights us up. This is our creativity. So I think if you're partnered up, you're bringing new energy into your relationship, forward momentum, you know, passion. The Knight of Wands is all about passion and fire, but be sensitive to where you're at with this process this week, and also where your partner may be at. And I know these tie back to the cards we were talking about in the weekly spread, but you know, tactfulness with swords. You know, you've got a lot of power in your words, and choose loving words and choose kindness when you're having any conversations with your loved ones, because we don't want to be blunt and tactless. That will not get our point across. But you're just so bright in standing in your truth right now. You're shining for your partner, and your partner is there to support you in that. And I see this forward momentum, especially doing the inner work here. you're bringing more to the table, and you're able to talk about it. I think that you're able to articulate it and be understood, because you're also able to listen. That's the flip side of swords, is that always that reminder that we need to listen, and listen for truth and clarity. All right, that's relationships. If you're looking, okay, I don't want to move on too fast. If you're looking, there's some work to be done. There's just some internal spiritual healing. And that's kind of a theme that has been coming up lately. There's some spiritual healing that I would like you to really pause and take the moment to look at. But then I think, you're on fire. You are ready to look for that passion and bring your passion to the table with your truth. All right, single and happy, do the internal work. It will only make you happier. It will only broaden your horizon and introduce new people to you through pursuing passions that have maybe stepped by the wayside but need to come back into your life with forward momentum. All right, let's take a look now at that career aspect. And I when I say wealth, I always tie these two together. It is about what we do to sustain this body, this material thing that we have to live. But it's also about really being grounded. It's about nurturing those things about ourselves and those around us that fill up that box, that fill up that life that we are so anxious about sometimes and don't know which way to turn, but finding our hearth and home and our heart. Okay, enough of that. Anyway, let's go ahead and just get the card going for that. Two of Swords. Okay, she has come up lately also. And this is another inward dialogue card. So there is a choice to be made. The Two of Swords is about, making a decision and cutting through. And we got the Ace of Swords also, so I kind of like how that ties to this. But this person is blindfolded, and they're sitting on a bench by an ocean. I know I've said that before, but it's a pause, and it's also an internal dialogue about making a decision. And for me, the blindfold, and maybe she's got earplugs in too and is listening to her tunes while she's thinking this out. It's also about not letting outside chatter kind of influence what we're thinking. And I don't have it out, but the Light Seers card is the same figure blindfolded. The swords are represented by ravens, and they're just like pulling at her hair. And it's like, shh, shh, let me make my own internal decisions. And then once I'm ready to move forward, I can do that. Again, processing some things here this week. As far as making decisions with career, do it with real clarity. Make sure you've got all the facts and figures before you move forward. Because this is a pause. Like I said, something is afoot that you will need to make a decision about. But let's be sure that we're getting that clarity and truth speaking from both sides before we make any movement. As far as stability, I think we're okay. I trust absolutely that our knowledge and internal intuition is going to guide us the right way. All right, that's what I have for the expanded this week. Wow, this is just pretty esoteric in my opinion on the energy this week. Don't let it bog you down. Some of these processes don't need to take a whole lot of time, especially if you get really clear on your thinking around things. All right, I would like to use our Spirit of Animals Tarot